Hello, Stephen Cash from the Steady State. I want to talk for a few minutes about the national security strategy, which was issued last week by the Trump administration. Sounds pretty inside the beltway and boring. Well, national security strategies are actually a pretty important document. Most presidents in recent history have used them, and they're a key element in how a president articulates what the nation's foreign policy strategy is, as the name suggests. It's pretty simple. You lay out in a document what you're trying to achieve as President of the United States, who is in charge of our foreign policy, along with Congress and as Commander in Chief. Well, the one that issued last week was absolutely terrible. I can't say it any other way. I hate to say it that way. It's not really a national security strategy. It's a propaganda piece. It takes some time criticizing former presidents, explaining how wonderful Donald Trump is and his administration is, sort of a little explanation of how he believes he's a very stable genius, essentially, and then goes on to essentially dismantle what has been America's strategy since the Second World War and replace it with thinly disguised racism, ethnocentrism, and a complete rejection of our friends and allies who have fought next to us since the Second World War and through the Gulf War and through the global war on terrorism. It's an outrageous document. It mentions NATO, I think, 3 times, and then essentially saying we don't really need NATO anymore. It mentions Europe throughout, essentially casting them as an enemy. Clearly most concerned about Europe no longer being a bastion, as they see it, of white supremacist Western culture. It clearly favors Russia. An honest reader would have to say this is a document that says we are strategic partners of Russia in dividing up the world into spheres of influence, sort of a 19th century approach to geopolitics. And it doesn't really lay out a strategy in any real sense, as opposed to sort of a screed about how we're angry at a lot of people and we feel that our former allies aren't respectful enough of Donald Trump. I'm painting with a broad brush here, but I think it's important that people take a look at this document. There's a lot going on in the Trump administration that gets articulated not as much in the tweets and the truth socials or whatever they're called, but in boring, bureaucratic feeling documents, which when you read them aren't that bureaucratic and aren't that boring. They're statements of an autocrat growing into the role of the sole arbiter of what American policy is, ignoring the 3-part system we have of presidency, the legislature, and the judiciary, and ignoring the history and values of this country. So when you read that document, it's a little hard to get through, but you'll get the sense when you get to the end that we've taken a U-turn. We are no longer the beacon of liberal democracy in the West. We are no longer a leader in tolerance and multi-ethnic, multi-ideological society. We're no longer a champion of free speech and free belief. But we've joined Vladimir Putin and Russia in dividing up the world. It's a sad day that that was implemented, or at least issued. I strongly urge you to take a read of it. Make your own judgment. Remember, get smart, but this is what we're looking at. So get smart and hold fast.